Check. No?
Hello, hello,
Can you
hello.
hear me?
I can hear you now. I'm gonna
Okay.
open us up with a little music today. You gotta admit, it's pretty freaking catchy.
I'll tell you this. Britt Merrick texted me that very song, Touch of Grey. I think it was yesterday. And I hadn't heard it in a while and played it and was like, that's why I hate him. Like it reconfirmed every bit of my hatred for the Grateful Dead. Yeah, I think people are worried that I was going to convert. I mean, let's be honest. What? The fight card certainly went to Britt Merrick. I think the judges probably scored it 70-30 Britt Merrick. Uh, but I'm never going to convert. Their music sucks.
When you say that right there is why I hate them, that song, I like that song.
It's
What's wrong with that song?
it's like a Sesame Street song. It's like like it's playful and goofy. There's no like drive to it. There's no energy. And again, like thinking about the debate, thinking about things that I should have said. Uh I
It's a
should have
long drive home to think about
it
that.
is. It's a long drive home, Friday traffic. But man, I'll tell you what, that weekend vans, ooh wee.
Makes
Like
things easier.
there's something about being a king of the American road. Like, can we
Yeah,
talk
that's
about
true.
this? Like sitting so high above, like being basically even with semis and just be like, when you're down in traffic, I feel the angst of traffic. When I'm sitting above it, it just felt like, oh,
That's a good point.
I'm in my kingdom.
Well, it's funny. We were talking, I was explaining how Cook and Kern came from rich man, poor man. Rich man, poor man, sleeping in your car.
Yeah, exactly. That's you got your weekend van? Man,
Exactly.
being a rich man. But
Exactly.
all to say, I was thinking that it would have been better for me to just say, look at Britt. Uh, we have tastes in music. Everybody has taste, right? And it's hard to say whose taste is better, and whose taste is worse, except for when it comes to things like the Grateful Dead, which is just bad taste. Grateful Dead, people who like the Grateful Dead have bad taste in music, and that's okay. It's like fine to admit that you have bad taste in music.
See, I don't think you've made any more of an argument today than you did last week. I think we're back at square one, actually. So today is Thursday. It's not a full week since our last show, but I gotta say, I enjoyed our time up there. It was worth the drive. I had a great time. I love those guys at Channel Islands. They are not only making great surfboards, obviously in a variety of genres, but salt of the earth, hardworking people. A lot of those guys in that factory have been there for 20 plus years. They are
Completely.
masters of their craft. They still show up, they still iterate, they still refine on everything. They can kind of rest on their laurels. In fact, if you think about 50-year-old surf brands, I don't know of one other than Channel Islands who is still iterating and innovating 50 years on.
Completely. And I think that being in the room, part of part of where I feel this innovation, continued innovation is coming from is there's a palpable tension between Devin Howard and Britt
Mm,
Merrick.
mm.
Not a personal tension, but a like somebody had noted, I guess, on the podcast. I should go back and look at it on the YouTube. Uh, is my mic coming in and out?
No, it's
Oh,
on.
okay. That when Britt was talking about his pop-up, and how why he's staying fit and all that stuff, where I mentioned that, what help where you really what solves your pop-up is a CI mid. And apparently Britt made a very upset face, even though it is his own brand, it's his own board that he is selling, that his company is making. Uh and no, so I think Britt being such a shortboard, Britt is a high performance shortboarder, right? That's what he does, that's what
Yeah.
he loves. You bring Devin in to make yourself like kind of mad perpetually, right? And think, I gotta
Mm.
beat that guy. I'm gonna make a better board than that dude. And I feel Devin probably, in Devin's way, also knows like, okay, high performance shortboard man, you are the bane because high performance shortboard dude has to have been the bane of Devin Howard's existence his entire life, right? Like You can subtly deal with it a lot of different ways, but for sure, they have been the bane of his existence. And so he's over there looking at the bane of his existence, saying, okay, I see you. I'm going to make a better product than you. And I feel that tension is what makes CI what it is today.
You are on to something here. You can get 20 articles out of this for the next year or two, because I really think they haven't even identified it yet. You clued into something they are unaware of. But Devin or Britt, what the listener identified on that YouTube was Britt cannot argue with the numbers. So as much
Yes,
as Britt is like seething at Devin's kind of whole ethos, he looks at the spreadsheet, at the balance sheet,
it's
basically,
working.
and he goes, holy cow, this category is completely revitalized. Our business has changed entirely because of Devin being here. And I got to sit here in the room with him now.
I gotta just stay here. But I feel that Brit then repurposes that rage into making better boards, right? And so then you got, I mean, which began this whole debate to begin with. Then you get the big happy, which how good does that board look?
I want to put on weight just to ride it.
I mean, completely. I wish that Merrick Lager was more fattening because then I would just go and chug them and get to my big happy weight.
Exactly. I can aspire to it in the future, anyways.
Yep.
Well, we have follow up, of course, from the debate, which, by the way, thanks everybody for all the kind words. A lot of people are saying that was the best show ever. People loved Brit.
I mean, of
Uh,
course, Brit is impossible. Imagine, dear listener, being in my shoes of having to go up and debate that man, like sitting across from him, knowing I've lost the second that anyone opens or that Brit opens his mouth because he's such a lovely man.
you know what I also identified? I hadn't thought about this before. What we love about Brit is his honestness. Like, he's somebody who may want to take kind of a political approach to the debate and, like, be respect or democratic, like be respectful of all, not say anything too offensive. But he discussed psychedelics. He addressed that head on. Uh, there was another moment. Oh, we were talking about the Olympics at Chopo and him saying it's really risky. And the example that he used was a young Chinese surfer who's not that experienced. We made a board for her. So it's
Yeah,
one of his own athletes who he is using as the example of being at real risk of injury and harm at this location. Rather than just leaving it vague and saying like, oh, there are potential risks, it's like, no, this is my own person. So
totally.
a lot of people elevate their athlete and don't want to, and he wasn't throwing her under the bus. It was just like, it was a very practical concern. But that's what I like about him is a real honesty and not trying to put the brand above the honesty or his own, image or whatever above the honesty.
I really liked my favorite part was when he just piled on to Felipe Toledo, though, when he said all those negative, hurtful things about Felipe Toledo. That was my favorite part.
Did he?
No.
Okay. I was going to say, or even Hypto Crypto. Like, I brought up the Hypto Crypto and he
Yeah.
could have taken the Democratic thing and like dodged the question, but he laughed about it.
He,
Anyways, we have follow up from last week. Is everything okay over there?
yep, sorry, I just had a
Okay. Um, David and Chaz just listened to the dead debate. Wanted to add a slight wrinkle that may actually help Chaz's case. And that is the very likely reality that, at least in part, the dead has been a CIA fueled parapolitical operation. There's been a fair amount of written about, there's been a fair amount written on this history. But here's the cliff notes. The vast majority of LSD available from the late 50s until the 70s was manufactured by, you guessed it, the US government. As students of psychedelic history know, our blessed CIA had a long-standing obsession with the concept that LSD might be a doorway to the sort of mind control possibilities that had the Cold War military complex salivating. Creating super soldiers, extracting information from foreign spies during interrogation, creating split personalities in operatives to allow them to authentically infiltrate different political and social scenes and report back, forms of psychic warfare and remote viewing, and many more such pipe dreams. If unfamiliar or skeptical of this history, the incredibly named and declassified Operation Midnight Climax is a great piece to start seeing just how freaky these dudes got. Anyway, long story short, and as any experienced LSD user can attest, It really can't do any of those things, at least not in a controllable or predictable way. And so, as the experiments trailed off in disappointment, what do you do with all this acid now? A more mundane plan B emerged. Dump it, Johnny Appleseed style, on the burgeoning leftist student movement that was just beginning to properly organize and align itself with other resistance groups like the Black Panthers, various working class and unionizing groups, etc. They targeted Ken Kesey as the perfect Johnny. The famous Grateful Dead acid tests are acknowledged as one of the first instances of this acid dump at mass scale, preceded by the famous, more focused Stanford experiments that involved Ginsberg, Kesey, and DeadHead lyricist Robert Hunter, etc. And the question of where all that acid could have come from in the mid 60s really only has one obvious answer. And why? Well, the Dead really became the hallmark of the famous Leary style uh, turn on, tune in, drop out ethos that came to define the later hippie movement. Don't organize, don't vote, don't trip on like concerns, man. Forget all that. Let's be our own society. Let's drop out. Let's chill out and keep the good vibes forever and escape to self-made, partially imaginary utopia. Let's all be deadheads. I'm not really a dead hater or a dead lover. And much like the failed MK Ultra experiments, it's doubtful to me that this operation was heavily controlled much beyond the acid tests. However, if you look at the broad trajectory of the boomers and the bandmates themselves, from passionate student organizing with diverse working class groups in the late 50s and 60s to dropout hippies through the 60s and 70s to cynical near liberation style get mine capitalism through the 80s and 90s, it's hard not to say that it worked. How do all of those 60s boomers build a new world? Energy fizzles, or how did all of that build a new world? Energy fizzles so spectacularly into Tommy Bahama wearing, cigar smoking, Jimmy Buffett style libertarian individualism. Could be the Dead, man. Setting aside the strangeness of having a lyricist that isn't in the band, let's just listen to Jerry sing the words of MK Ultra Robert Hunter in US Blues. Quote, my oh my, I'm Uncle Sam. That's who I am. Been hiding out in a rock and roll band. End quote. Are those dancing bears or are they goose stepping? Anyways, I hope you all go to the Sphere and investigate. Keep work.
I love our listeners so very, very much. Like, not only fascinating information, I read that email twice when it came through. Not only fascinating, but well written. Like, it is well presented, and yeah, and very, very, very thankful for it because yeah, now I know that Britt and his ilk are just pawns of the government.
It's it's easy to sound crazy,
But it's
like,
true.
well, it is true. It's
It's
well
true.
documented,
Yeah.
and it's not only really well documented, it's I guess the information, it's so far out there. Like you could never imagine that anybody would do that. So if you don't organize a cohesive argument that it did happen and you just provide little tidbits here and there, it sounds so wacky. But now there's enough books written by authorities who are like, a lot of them who weren't even using the drugs. That's another thing. If the people were actually pawns in the experiment,
It'd be a
that
little
question,
dubious.
yeah, exactly. But when it's the people who created the experiments, worked on the experiments, coming out now, and and the files themselves are declassified and available, it's like, holy cow, it is
Yeah.
what it is.
Midnight climax is what it is.
Midnight Climax.
Really good.
Incredible
Yep.
stuff. So thank you for organizing that email, putting that together, and wow, okay. It makes me want to actually, I think this is the beginning of a very long journey of me getting to know the Dead.
Oh, I mean, we still like, I mean, our dear listeners know the amount of good ideas we come up with that don't follow through on. That's what I realized when we did go up and actually debate or do the Dead debate with Britt. People are like, thank you for doing this. And I was like, oh yeah, we do say a lot that we're not going to do, including taking the Dane to the Deads, taking the Danes to the Dead, which I really do want to do that though. I really got to figure out. I'm going to reach out to oh, what's his dude? Dane, Reynolds. That's
Um, okay. I actually kind of really want to do it too.
yeah, I
I mean,
know.
to me, here's what listeners may or may not know. Our schedules, my schedule anyways, is packed.
Yeah, mine too.
I think I've recorded literally 6 podcasts in the last 7 days, and publishing podcasts, editing, trying to reply to email, whatever, everything that it takes, you know. And so doing something like that, yes, it's fun. I just don't know that I can cram it into a schedule is the
Yes.
problem. So that's why things don't get done often. However, I feel like that might be worth. And like I said, partially because this is the beginning of my dead journey. Like if it were just music, I don't know that this would be the beginning of a journey because I could just push play on Spotify.
It's
But
a
the idea,
culture.
yeah, the idea that you have to go and experience it live, the idea that there is this entire parapolitical agenda is really interesting. I think
Talk about,
that was on my end. It just shut off on me somehow.
I'll tell you exactly how. Talking about parapolitical organizations, talking about
Oh my
brain
God.
mind experiments with the CIA,
You were totally right.
talking about midnight climaxing, and then boom.
You were totally right. By the way, speaking of that, we should address this publicly. Um, you told me it's just fairly recently that you guys are being kind of depressed by the algorithm.
Yes.
I've been experiencing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like
It
Instagram,
stinks.
yeah, Instagram posts, stuff like that. It's like complete, like stuff that used to get engagement doesn't anymore. So I went ahead yesterday or the day before, and I'm like, I'm just going to spend money on, I'll boost posts. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like a little bit money here and there. Instantly, everything goes through the roof again.
Yeah, no, I mean, which is, I get it, right? It's a pay to play.
Yeah.
I understand. I understand that this is not free, but like when there's two companies that own everything, it's either
Yeah.
Meta or Google. There is two, right? And so it's just yeah, it's a nasty monopoly where I can't wait. And I wish that our dear US government would go break those monopolies up like yesterday.
It's really crazy. I knew that was always the case. Like, you know, we're going to give you a free billboard for a period of time, and then at a certain point, you got to start paying for the billboard. I get that, but I thought that there was a way, or there was a way for a long time to organically game the system. You know,
Sure.
like
It's because people,
you're
yeah,
contributing to the platform, and so that's already good enough for them. You're spending
yes.
time on the platform.
You're
You've
bringing
created a
people onto the
community.
platform.
Yeah, you created a community. The community wants to engage, and so they'll let you do it to a certain degree. In the last like 6 months, let's say,
It's done.
it's like, nope, press you all the way down until you give us money or just go away.
Yep. They don't
So
care. Yeah,
it's
they do
crazy.
not care. Yeah,
Yeah.
they do not care about your engagement. They don't care about your community. They don't care about anything. They care about your money. That's it. And yeah, you pay them money.
Well, for the reason why I wanted to bring this up publicly for listeners is do your part to engage. You know, like share the whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is, like comment, share the show with friends, fully engage to attempt to organically break the algorithm. Because, I mean, you know, we'll pay for advertising as needed, but it's it's only sustainable to a certain level. You can't boost every single post and pay for every single week. Anyways, moving on. Follow up. Darwin nicknames. We talked about Darwin
Yes.
Florence's entrance into the world, I think 2 weeks ago. We're like, man, the only problem there
No
is
nickname.
no nickname. How do you just refer to the kid as Dar? Like there needs to be some catchy nicknames. Listeners chimed in on that one, of course. What about Flo? Spelled either Flow or just FLO
But how does it relate to Darwin?
because his last name's Florence.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, I
Okay,
guess.
what about win-win?
I like win-win. I like win-win.
Win-win's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, oh, it's really good. That's my top that's top of the leaderboard right now. Win-win.
Yeah. Darwin. And so you would think the short ones win, but it actually sounds better win-win. Hey, win-win, come here.
And I mean, it is John John. Like it's part of the legacy too, right? Of the double name, double barrel.
Okay. Well, the other one that you saw was Chuck. Of
Yes.
course, it's Darwin Florence. There was Charles Darwin, of course, Chuck Darwin, and then Chuck Florence.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty good. I like that. I thought for a while when young daughter Hemingway was younger that I was going to call her Ernest. So in that vein, it totally works.
She should go by
Ernie.
Ernie.
Yeah, exactly.
What's
I
up, Ern?
I really thought about it because those kinds of things as a parent, you have to make a concerted effort to do it, right? Some of these things come naturally where you just can't help calling your kid something and then that's the nickname that sticks with them, right? Like Bubba or, whatever that has no relation sometimes or oftentimes to the name. But like, so it either comes organically where you just can't help doing it. But if you want to put it out there, if you want to stamp it, then you really have to make it as parent on young baby slash toddler, make a
Yep.
concerted effort to call kid by that nickname.
Yep. Agreed. Well, I think win-win sticks. So
Win-win, win-win. Chuck's pretty good, but win-win.
you're welcome, John John.
Yeah.
The thing is, Chuck is decent, but it's like there's a million people named Chuck.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's like it doesn't elicit any response. If
Right.
somebody heard the kid, if somebody heard John John calling his young son, "Hey Chuck, come over here," people would just assume his name is Charles.
Right. Win-win for the win.
Yep. Win-win.
Well, hey, guess what? Heat 1 of opening round 1 is in the water right now in El Salvador at the Surf City El Salvador Pro. The women ran their 4 heats of the opening round already, but currently Ethan Ewing, Rio Waida, and Matt McGillivray are in the water. Chaz Smith, who is your survival pick?
My survival pick, I am really flying close to the sun here, David Lee Scales. I've got Griffin Colapinto.
Don't we all?
I mean, but the Colapinto curse has been dormant. For those who have played the last 2 iterations of Survival League will know that Griffin Colapinto typically this year he hasn't, but years past he has decimated the field, right? He has annihilated people.
At El Salvador, is that what you mean?
No,
Or
through
just
the
in
year.
the
Remember? I mean, it was the Colapinto
Oh,
curse
gotcha,
was
gotcha.
you
Yeah.
anybody who if you pick Colapinto, you're going down basically. The Colapinto
Right.
curse and the Colapinto curse seems to be broken this year thus far. Obviously, he's in the yellow or he's not anymore, but he was. He was very near the top of the rankings. Had a great
Yeah,
season.
I think he's second now. But my concern with Colapinto here, and I did pick him in my losers league. Um, there's a caption at the bottom when you pick your server, and it says, "Why did you pick this server?" And I started typing out the last 2 events there. He made the final, and he won one of those events. So
Yep.
obviously, he's the obvious pick. And as I wrote that out, I realized that's exactly when people lose and
Hmm.
upset the entire league. So
Exactly.
this is, as you said, flying way too close to the sun, but I'm going with it.
And here's the problem with because I had that exact same thought, right? I was like, he's the no-brainer. The fact that he's the no-brainer means that it's not a good idea. But then I can't double guess a double guess at this
I
point,
know.
right? Like
Yeah.
I've already double guessed it. And yeah, this year with my survival, I'm still in the OG league. So I have survived this thus far, and it's just basically I picked the obvious surfer at every. I haven't tried to be. I was cute at the start. I picked Yago for pipe, which I feel was a bold move out of the gate. When you have the entire field, uh, I picked Yago, which I thought was pretty bold. So got through on that one barely. Yago went to the elimination round, but then made it through. Uh, but from then on, I've just picked the obvious surfer.
Yeah.
And
Well, um, I will. I still have faith in Griffin, but last night John Florence dropped a clip, a free surf clip from Punta Roca, and after seeing that clip, I think it was the best wave I've ever seen surfed there. Um, and it made me. It just I had an epiphany, and I go, you know what? John's going to win a world title this year. I always put my money on him, obviously for big surf. Everybody does, but and I know he's won lowers probably 8 years ago or whatever it was. But watching him surf that wave, I thought, I don't know of a surfer who can match his power even in small waves. Like he somehow figured out how to unlock that power that he was doing at Margaret River or Haleiwa, he's always done, but now in like a shoulder high wave. And then he had an air section. He boosted this lofty frontside air that just looked as simple as me going down the line. Like it was crazy effortless. And I was trying to think back to like Felipe Toledo surfing these waves and how much spark and speed that he has and how appealing that is, and comparing that to John John. And I just thought John John's going as fast, doing what Felipe can. There's just the element of power and strength that used to be reserved for only Jordy. You know what I mean? And now John John's applying all of the things. So I think you guys predicted him retiring at the end of the year. I think third world title, drop the mic, retire on top, and express all of the dignity that we have talked about other top level surfers not expressing at the top of their game.
You're exactly correct. I mean, it's all of the pieces are coming into play for this same exact scenario that you just described. The one problem, do you want to know what the one problem is, David Lee Scales?
Can't wait to hear it.
There's an asterisk on his third world title because he would not have beat Felipe at lowers, right? He would not have, I mean, which goes to show that the World Surf League so royally messed up with finals day. Funny in a hilarious way. And I love that they have it because it gives us something to talk about. But that you can basically, finals day basically taints, finals day at lowers, I should specify, taints basically any championship. Like, I mean, if if Felipe was still in the draw and John John won it, I think if Felipe was still in it, then it wouldn't be tainted, right? Then everybody would know, okay, you beat the best and blah, blah, blah. But the fact that it even comes down to lowers, like whoever's, if John John's well ahead after stunning performances at Chopu, at Pipeline, at Margaret, at, like John John has surfed each event this year really, really well, right? Even when he's gone out, he hasn't been clunky at all. Like if Gabriel wins at the end of this year, it'll be also a great story with an asterisk because no Philippe. But Gabriel started really slow and just didn't find his mojo and is getting going now, right? Which is great and fun to watch, and hopefully gets into the final five and all that. But yeah, John John has had a fairly dominant season all year, right? He's really put it together. And to come down, if he's first at lowers, he'll have to, or he'll get two chances to win, right? Essentially, that's how the format works, which be really hard to beat John John out there, twice.
If the waves are, if they're swell, he'd be really hard to beat, especially watching what he did, like I said, in that clip of a very similarly styled wave. I don't think there's an asterisk if he does win. The asterisk is on the WSL, to be honest. It's not on John John, because nobody would ever, any reasonable viewer of surfing, critical viewer of surfing, would not think that Felipe Toledo would have been the better surfer throughout the course of the year.
Definitely don't think that. But the
you know
format,
what I mean?
But the format that the World Surf League has now given us in terms of this is how you win a championship. Okay, you win it on this one day at lowers. Okay, fine. Well, then the best small wave surfer in the world had decided to take a mental health break for the year, and isn't there. So, I mean, if all things equal, whatever, like, of course it's a dumb format. I think the champion should be the champion of the year, right? We had a fine system that worked, and maybe it, whatever. But you want some spice? Here's your spice. And now you got asterisks everywhere, World Surf League.
Yeah, but we're already living in a farcical world. Like we've already accepted that the WSL has botched this thing or created a format that doesn't make a lot of sense, that gave Felipe Toledo 3 championships, basically. So that's where the asterisk lies. But John Florence elevated despite all of those things, and he beat people on the WSL's own format. And then when you look at it in its totality and scale back, you go, yeah, John was the best surfer of that year. There's nothing Felipe could have done at lowers that would have changed that. And if there is, just based on the WSL's own failure, the asterisk is on them, not on John. So I think he walks away clean. I don't think that he engages it in again.
Yeah, no, I think he's done, right? I feel that there's no way that, I don't even think that he would be tempted, is the funny thing. Like, I think that most athletes at the top of their game, which you see obviously with Kelly, who is, a hilarity at this point doing it. But you got like Brett Favre, you've got Aaron Rodgers, you have these, Tom Brady. it's hard to step away, right? It's hard to step away, especially after you win, because then you're like, I just won. Why am I stepping away? I feel that John will retire as predicted and not even give it a second thought.
Yeah, I agree. And he should. And he's
Yeah.
got better things to do, at this point. And his level of surfing deserves to be on the best waves in the world. So it'd be a waste of his time to be surfing, to be honest, Punta Roca. Speaking of Tom Brady, did we discuss the Tom Brady roast ever on the podcast?
I don't think so. I do
Did
not
you
think we did. I
did you
did.
watch it?
I watched until I couldn't take it anymore. I'm not a
It's a
real
long, it's like 3.5 hours.
it's so long and I'm not a huge fan of roast comedy, right? Like
Yeah.
just like I get it. I get that it's funny. And the ones that really like obviously Nikki Glazer well-deserved career bump out of that thing because that
Amazing.
was a masterful. I mean, that was poetry. Like every not only the things she said, but the way she delivered her lines, the like it was it was stand-up perfection. I've never seen a stand-up bit go that well.
It was incredible.
Worth watching alone for that. But after the Nikki Glazer one, then I was just and I thought Kevin Hart was really funny too. Like I thought Kevin Hart came out and handled it and was a very funny host for the thing, right? Going roasting the comedians back and forth. I liked that part. But eventually, after like 1.5 hours, I tapered off.
Yeah, what I didn't like about it was hold on, okay. What I didn't like about it was the non-comedians. There was
Yeah.
way too many non-comedians. So we found ourselves after the 1.5 hour mark, like fast forward through all that BS and just go to the people who actually know how to deliver a joke.
Yep.
And we still haven't finished it. I think we tried for like 2 or 3 nights and then quit. But what I did like about it was in a safe space culture of cancellation, I liked seeing a return to the crass.
I gotta say, it feels like I mean, knock on wood here, Colapinto curse, knock on the Colapinto curse, but it feels like we're kind of coming out of cancel culture. It feels
I feel
like
that way too.
people are got tired of like writing everyone off
Yeah,
for, I mean, there's no more people left, right? And it feels boring, which I
totally.
love that it ran its course, or I'm really hoping that it's run its course. It feels like with Eminem coming back with, have you seen Eminem's new song?
No.
It's pretty funny. I mean, I'll like his Slim Shady character steps into a time portal and comes to modern time to cancel culture time and just goes on a rampage, which is a funny concept all in. But yeah, like it feels like spring is here again for free thought and to be able to disagree with somebody without like burning them at the stake.
That was my takeaway from that Netflix special because yeah, you could expect Eminem to do it to like his audience will support him. He's going to create art and an audience will support him. But for Netflix, which is a giant corporation that has a lot of liability to protect, to co-sign and publish it and put it out there for the masses and then promote it like as the number one thing for a couple weeks straight when it is that raw and crass and offensive, I thought was really a turning point.
I mean, gotta hand it to Netflix a bit. Like they have kept on with their comedian thing, like, and not backing away, right? They didn't back away from Dave Chappelle when there was
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of uproar. I feel there's been a lot of controversial comedy specials on there that stay up. I don't see Netflix apologizing. It's just watch it if you want to. Don't watch it if you're going to be offended. By all means, don't enjoy it, right? Or don't
Yeah.
watch it. Like,
Yeah.
but we don't need to either police or babysit or all this stuff. Like, yeah, I wondered the people who enjoy uh thought policing and canceling and all that, the ones who are like angry behind their computers, that's a stupid cliche, angry behind their computers. The people who are angry and want people punished for speaking things that are offensive. Do you think they're as their power shrinks, are they going to get more and more rage filled and like, I mean, what's the outlet now? If you can't get people canceled anymore, what do you do?
I mean, right. crappy Yelp reviews for the restaurant that pissed you off last night.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think
I mean,
that's what it'll turn into. I would even love for all of cancel culture to go away so much that even those Yelp reviews go away, right? Like
yeah,
those Yelp reviews are so dumb.
I mean, I don't know how long you can stay angry.
Yeah.
I feel like anger is I don't know what age group. I was going to try to define a demographic, but I don't know that you can because I think of old angry people, but I do think of like when I was in my mid 20s, I had a lot of ire, just it was energy that would somehow or sometimes come out as ire and aggression. And now I'm much more even keeled,
Yeah.
because it's just like I don't have that energy anymore, to be
No.
perfectly honest. But I do see old angry dudes, rage filled, road rage filled, angry at the grocery store because there's too many carts in the aisle or whatever it is. But I think that might be a symptom of just like I don't know, of living in suburbia, like
Yeah.
you're
I
just
mean, I
like
think
overworked, underexpressed, and like it has to come out somewhere.
yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's just, life can
Yeah.
deal some licks, and I think some people just get mad after taking those licks.
Yeah. But I think that Netflix special, on the other hand, I'm not easily offended. I don't know that I'm ever really offended. And I heard a couple of those jokes and was
Dang.
aghast. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that almost offended me.
Yeah, no, they
I'm glad
really
back.
they really push it. I felt about as far as you can push it.
Totally. But we should all be pushed and we should all feel that sense of whatever and have to deal with it. That's
Completely.
okay.
Like it's okay to be uncomfortable and it's okay to I mean, I think with comedy it really is a fine line with speaking, with doing anything publicly, right? Like I think about it every time we podcast, it's always in the back of my mind of, should I say that? Like you can't just be vanilla. You have to be provocative at some level to be interesting. I feel, especially a show like this, right? Which is designed to, it's obviously not the best thing in the world, but to provoke a thought. And to provoke a thought, you have to be provocative. But where is that line, right?
Well, I've been as a mindless TV just to have on kind of in the background during an hour or so in the evening. I've been watching No Reservations or Anthony Bourdain's other shows, Parts
Yeah.
Unknown, just letting them kind of cycle through. And last night I was watching one where he was sitting with his famous Spanish chef somewhere in Spain, and the Spanish chef said, you know, there was a big group of people at the table, and he said he only wants to have meals with people who disagree. Like he's like, I don't want to agree with anybody about anything. Like I want you to feel differently about the food and us to argue about it and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, what an interesting concept to want to disagree. Like, and then I thought further about it and I said, yes, he's entirely right. Like if you sit down and the person across from you feels the exact same way and you deliver a point and they go, I fully agree with you. Then they say something and you go, yeah, fully agree with you. That's about where the conversation ends. You need somebody to present an alternative opinion and for you to think about it and discuss it and argue against it and then come to and then if there's 8 of them, that's even more interesting. And then all of a sudden things are excited and there's energy and I was like, wow, that guy nailed it. That's exactly what you want.
Which, back to the Britt Merrick Grateful Dead debate, it makes me think I want to do that again with somebody else about we could do it with another surfboard shaper, another surf personality, right? I mean, it's a surf based show, but I'm trying to think of what's
It's entirely what the show should become because and it shouldn't be about surfing. I thought that is exactly what we identified last week was let's Matt Biolis said some controversial things in the last episode of how surfers get paid talking about women surfers. Let's take those things, not about surfing, but just like that topic and we go debate him about
exactly.
those
Okay, so
things.
who's, I mean, I guess throwing it out to the listener here, who's next and on what? Like, I feel I'm very opinionated and not shy about my opinions. So I'm trying to think of an opinion that I have and who would be a someone that would be, or an opinion that you have.
We we could figure out dozens and dozens and dozens. The
Yeah,
list
okay.
is endless. Kissing the kid on the mouth, returning your shopping cart. We've already covered a ton of them. Those maybe you don't feel as passionate as you do about the Grateful Dead, but guaranteed we'll just wait for Matt Biolis or somebody else who's willing. That's the thing. The reason why I keep saying him is because he's willing to actually like engage and discuss it and go
Yep.
deep. So wait for them to say something. We will isolate that thing that they said. You will take the opposite stance. Boom. We'll
Off
do.
we go. Yeah, it's great. I mean, hearing, yeah, even the Brit on pizza crust, Brit on kissing your kid on the mouth, like those, every one of those of the greatest hits, I was both surprised at Brit's position. I think I was surprised on all of them, to be honest. I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, I would have not have pegged that.
Well, another thing that the point that he made that I brought up earlier was sending surfers out at Chopu during the Olympics when they are ill-equipped. And his concern about that, I thought was very, very interesting and worth much more discussion because of the reality of the situation. Um, that is a expert only wave. And a lot of the countries who have surfers in the Olympics this year, they are not equipped for that wave. Like even if they are professional level surfers, that wave is for a specific style of surfer, and you have to have experience at that specific wave for years and years and years and multiple swells to really get to the point of proficiency. And so the concerns of putting surfers out there, who a lot of them, this is going to be the first time they've really experienced that wave. The potential consequences are terrible viewing experience, potential injury and disaster, which is almost a certainty, by the way. Like it's not, oh, this might happen. It is a certainty that there will be injury and then potential disaster. Uh, and then my other concern is coming out of this mistake is an overcorrection. So if this is a bad idea and there's a massive swell and there's only basically five surfers who are equipped to surf that wave and everybody else gets obliterated, then what's going to happen in 4 years from now? uh we're going to end up surfing San Onofre or lower Trestles, you know what I mean, or something like that.
I mean, we will, but it's funny. I had a interview or was interviewed for a mainstream magazine a couple days ago about the Olympics, and uh, the interviewer asked, like, what could go wrong, or what could go wrong? Yeah, and I said, for me, as somebody who actually surfs, there's number one thing that goes wrong is that if it's so dreamy and great that I don't think lineups around the world, or at least lineups in Southern California, could take another COVID era participation boom. Like
Yeah.
if everybody's watching this and says, this is like the dreamiest thing ever. If it's like, say like, 4 to 6 foot chopu, just crystalline barrels, everybody looking like they're having the times of their life. And then everybody coming out thinking, I want to start surfing too. We cannot have that. We cannot
Yeah.
take any more because the inn is full. Yeah, and then second thing I said is somebody gets like genuinely really, really hurt. I mean, that somebody, yeah, like, I
the
mean,
only the only way
don't
they
want to
don't
curse it, but man.
the only way they don't is if they take Felipe Toledo's strategy that he's taken in the past, which is cower on the shoulder.
Well, I mean, so that's what I posed this exact question on Beach Grit yesterday. And that's what I was like, I'm worried that there's a genuine concern that somebody will get really hurt. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody wisely said in the comments, I don't think we'll see that. I think what we'll see is just a lot more Felipe Toledo style 0.00. Speaking
That's
of,
so that's possible, but let me take it a step further. Felipe Toledo is able to sit on the shoulder and dodge sets because he is a top level professional surfer. I think that there's surfers who are going to be in the Olympics who don't even have the proficiency to get out of the way necessarily.
oh,
Like there could be a rogue set, and those things come up so quick. Like, you don't see it coming from very far. It just
that's
folds over on itself. So there could be somebody who just gets detonated on the inside.
really watching this last Chopu contest, like the entire thing, basically for 2 days for both the women's draw and the men's draw, you realize, and they, obviously addressed it from the booth too. But you're exactly to your point, you do not see those waves coming. Like you don't see the swell lines marching in from, oh, I got to paddle, this way or that way. It's just on top of you, and you could see how easy. I mean, that's the thing. Sitting and watching on a screen, I always think, why isn't the surfer A or B in better position? Like when you're out in an empty lineup, even if I paddled out to the lineup that I surf all the time, if I was alone, I don't know that I would initially set up in the right spot, right?
Yeah.
If I've surfed this beach 1,000 times, uh, and I still feel like if it was empty, not one person in the lineup, I'd be, oh man, yeah, I'd figure it out pretty quick.
But you'll miss a set or two for
For
sure.
sure,
Yeah.
definitely. And that's at a place I know super well, and a place where you could see the waves coming from a mile out. Imagine never being in the lineup with one other person at Chopu, and especially if that person is not super proficient either, right? Like, so both of you kind of two lost people in a lineup, exactly to your point. A rogue or a one that swings wide or whatever could just come in and blow everyone up.
And you can't duck dive those waves.
No,
Like if you're in the wrong position, there's no chance that you are going to get sucked over the falls. And so I do predict if there's proper swell, there will be disasters.
which
So
will, I mean, as long as everyone's safe, the carnage is going to be part of what's fun about it, I feel. Just hoping that the carnage doesn't like take a too big of a toll.
I think it will, to be honest. I mean, the more I think about this, and I did think about it a little bit, but when Britt said it last week, I was like, it was because we were coming off of the event where the waves were so spectacular. And I was blown away that people didn't get more injured. But when you see Gabriel Medina, get his back flayed, you go, dude, somebody's going to get hurt. I
And that
mean,
was on a such a like that was at the end of the wave.
I know.
He had already like he fell off, but he was like and then just got sucked over really it looked so gentle and playful that like wipeout, and then he just comes up bloodied.
Yeah. And I think part of that makes for spectacular viewing, the reality of this is a different sport than lawn bowling is or any other Olympic sport is. That makes it compelling viewing. But when you are putting people who are when you created a qualification system that puts unqualified people into this expert level situation, that is totally a unique um, thing in the Olympics. Like, I don't know that we've had this done before in the Olympics.
It's interesting, and it'll be interesting to hear how have they announced who's going to call the action yet?
I
Is
don't,
NBC?
I don't
Whoever
know.
whoever does call the action, it'll be interesting to see how much they lean into that this is a really, really dangerous wave narrative versus how much they don't, right? Because I mean, I know with natural selection, that snowboarding thing, those mountains where they do it is deadly, right? Like this is not easy stuff, and there's avalanches, and it's insane. But talking about it too much looks like weird, like injury porn a bit that you kind of want something bad to happen. And then if something does happen bad and you were sitting in the booth talking about this place is really deadly, it could take your scalp, and somebody goes over the falls and gets their head knocked off, like that doesn't age well either, right? Because then it's like,
Yeah.
well, why did you, if you knew this was dangerous, all of the commentators are playing up the danger, and then somebody goes and gets really hurt. Ugh. So I wondered if they're going to tell them, hey, let's go slowly on the super dangerous talk.
I think that they will absolutely play up the super dangerous talk, but I do not think that they will play up or even mention some of these surfers aren't qualified to surf this wave. Like the great thing about natural selection or even the Tahiti event that the WSL runs is yes, this is one of the most dangerous waves in the world. And these are the only athletes who are qualified to surf this thing. The unique thing about the Olympics is they're standing at the cornice and they are not qualified to jump off. And we are encouraging them to.
How many, I wonder how many, and I would love a dear listener to go through because I don't know. Don't watch my ISAs and stuff like that. I wonder specifically which of the surfers uh people are worried about, right? Or have a cloud of worry. I mean, we know Felipe
I
Toledo.
Well, I could tell you which ones.
Who?
All of the ones whose names we do not know.
I hear that, but I wonder some of those you never know are just like hell chargers, right? Like there's those people who like they don't care. And I feel there's something to that. Like the people who just put their heads down, I mean, fortune does favor the bold and all that. Like if you're just going and those are the people I worry about less. It's the people like the Felipes who are second guessing it. Those are the people who are going to get
Look,
smashed. And I thought did you read Kelly's quote
no,
about, I thought it was a fascinating, Kelly at the end, like gave his, Chopu rundown, thanks to Tahiti, is magical, beautiful place. And the people and blah, 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 and the women who push themselves, and then he said something about, basically like Chopu is no joke. Uh, you have to make up your mind to go, and then you have to basically disregard what your mind is telling you after that, right? Which that uh dynamic of not listening to yourself, turning off your brain, like making up your mind, I'm going in there, okay, brain, you already made up your decision, off, and then you're paddling over the ledge and your mind is screaming, don't. And you're like, nope, turned you off. Like where you're letting your body do the work. I think that's what makes for a spectacular surfer out there.
Yeah, I agree. But to your point of which ones would you look at on that list, we would know their name. It's not just hell chargers. Like Pete Mel is a hell charger. I would not expect him to make many waves at Chopu during the WCT event that just ran. You know what I mean? Like it's a specialized wave, even amongst chargers. And so when you look at the Olympic list and you say which one of these will, succeed out there, we would already know their names.
Do you think we might be in for a surprise though, that somebody just hasn't had the budget, they finally get to go do it. They have all the skill set, they've never done it there. Like for example, Idolo's first wave out of the box, right? He had never surfed the wave. His very first wave is one of the most memorable of a
Yeah.
CT wave ever.
The only, I would argue, uh, not somebody whose name we don't already know. Maybe there's like a Rio Wida or somebody who like we wouldn't expect to do well out there, but we certainly know he's a world-class talent and then he elevated in that scenario. Or the other scenario I could imagine is somebody as like Aaron Brooks, like somebody who's got all the talent in the world and who is as young and flexible and doesn't know what they don't know. Like somebody like that might just go because
Why
there
not?
you don't have the fear at that point, or you don't know what the perceived limitations are. But I don't know. I think it's super rarity. I'm expecting carnage is what I'm expecting at this point.
I mean, man, it's going to be, no matter what, I will say, brilliant. I mean, because what else can you do if you're the Olympics? You want the most, uh, I mean, I'm going to be glued. Every surf fan is going to be glued to see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. Well, moving on, tools to live by, presented by Veyer Watches, VeyerWatches.com/surf splendor for 15% off.
That beautiful timepiece that you gave to Britt Merrick and the joy in his eyes receiving it reminded me again. I've said it once, I'll say it again, and especially, guess what's coming up, David Lee Scales?
What?
Father's Day. What is
Mm,
a better Father's Day gift than a watch?
can't even imagine one.
That's what I'm saying. And
Not a
seeing
necktie.
Britt is a man's man. He hunts his own, like everything he eats, he either hunts or grows himself. I mean, you don't get manlier than Britt Merrick. Uh, and you give men watches, and watching Britt receive the gift, knowing that this is all just watches, man. If you're a man, wear a watch.
And Britt can pass that watch down to his son, even because that's how well made it is.
He sure can.
So get yours 15% off VeyerWatches.com/surf splendor. Britt better be wearing that right now in El Salvador.
He was on screen earlier. I saw him.
Well, Joao Chianca is making his return, and Britt's there. I think is in the next heat, and so Britt will be watching that heat for sure. And
I almost went for survival with Joao. That was going to be I had a feeling the way he was surfing last I saw, I think it's Snapper, was
yeah,
like so good. But then I was
yeah,
thinking, oh, but he's going to be like at the bottom of the heat drop. That's the other thing with survival.
right.
You can't pick the bottom of the heat drop.
Good call. Um, by the way, Veyer heard about Merrick receiving that watch before I even told them that he received the watch, because I guess a bunch of listeners or friends of theirs who listen to the show or whatever heard about it and told them about it. So word travels quickly in this small surf community. Tools to live by, gents, could use some help. I will preface this story by saying this is a version of various stories that come through periodically. There is a theme emerging here. And so, but a slight deviation on this one. Gents, could use your help. The wife and I structure our vacations like this. I get one surf trip with the boys a year. She gets a visit, or she gets to visit family abroad, and we do one ski trip for her. it works well. She likes the mountains and the cold weather. I like the heat and the beaches. We work well together. I've been trying to convince her to go to Costa Rica as a family trip with our 6-year-old, but she has little to no interest in Central America. This works well for me though, since I can still do a trip with the friends and she isn't trying to come along. For years, I've been trying to convince her to go to Costa Rica, specifically Santa Teresa. I think it would be great since it's nice. There's surf, good food. She's not a snob, but it also has some nice Airbnbs and hotels. Based on this, she's nudged a little. And selfishly, I would then get 2 or at least 1.5 surf trips a year if she agrees to go. I think she would like it a lot if I can just get her to go. The advice I need, though, is should I keep trying to get her to go to Costa Rica so I can get a bonus surf trip in? Or just give it up and count my blessings, given my ability to take a yearly trip with my knucklehead friends? Thanks. Keep my info anonymous.
A tough one here, David Lee Scales. We have discussed going on surf trips with your significant other. We've discussed all this, so we can leave that aside. That's in the archive. I think this one, it's real, like the pushing part, right? Does pushing ever work for you? Like, if you want something,
It elicits the opposite reaction,
that's exactly what I was
the
going to say.
digging in of the heels.
Exactly what I was going to say. The pushing, see, if he wants this to happen, the advice, and I know he's not asking for this advice specifically, he's got to make up in his mind. So I can't help him there, right? I would say, of course, a bonus surf trip, why not, right? You get, especially if he follows the uses the tools to live by that we've already presented about when you go on a surf trip with your family, you don't, whatever surfs you get are bonus. You don't wake up jonesing to, get out and go get yours. That's not the family surf trip, right? So that out of the gate, if he's going expecting, or if he's wanting to go just a couple fun days, hey, what all of it's frosting at this point, right? If you go and you have a fun day surfing and you're on a family surf trip, that is a straight bonus. But he's got to make up his mind. So if that's what he wants, he's got to stop pushing. He's got to just be like, hey, we can do whatever. We can do whatever.
Look, it's already a lost cause with Costa Rica. He needs to wipe that slate and start with a new location and plant a seed of an idea somewhere that she doesn't identify that he planted it. And the
Great
idea
point.
needs to be
Great
her
advice.
own. You know what I mean? Because the reality is, in the world of locations that your wife would want to go to, Costa Rica does not land in the top 10, apparently. The only reason it's even part of the discussion is because you planted it. And the only reason you planted it was because there was surfing there. And so now she's trying to just kind of crowbar the idea into her acceptance. You're trying, she's trying. It's never going to be in the top destinations that she would have picked. So you need to frame the family vacation thing, has to check the boxes for her first. And then if there happens to be, surfing there, then that's a bonus for you. But the idea that this was always framed as your thing and a surfing thing, and you're trying to isolate the things that are cool about it that might appeal to her, is a reverse engineering.
I
And
was
it's a mistake from the get go.
I was just going to use reverse engineering because I was going to say he can reverse engineer this. He just has to do it better. You're
Yeah.
exactly right. It can't be Costa Rica. So he can
Yeah.
pick somewhere that he wants to go surfing and then find things that wife will like. And though, you just like
The
sprinkle those little seeds.
the way to have done this would have been never mention surfing in Costa Rica in the same sentence. Instead, one morning, brew the best coffee that she ever had in her life. And when she's commenting on how phenomenal it is, be like, oh, yeah, these are Costa Rican beans. And she'll be like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, I know. I've heard they're on the forefront of ecotourism,
Boom. Boom.
and
This
just
is
and then walk away. And
this
then
is
later in the day, and by the way, no, she doesn't even have to Google it and find out more. The algorithm in your phone heard that you said those words. And so she'll pull up Instagram later and see some toucans while she's scrolling. But and then the trap is set.
I've got to say, this is the best. You have just provided our dear listeners with the best tool to live by ever. This one is, it's a guarantee pretty much. But yeah, unfortunately for our dear friend here, the Costa Rica's already a lost cause. You already blew it
Totally.
on Costa Rica.
Totally.
Yeah, but there
So
is,
start
don't
looking
forget
at El Salvador.
Nicaragua. I mean, there's there's a, I mean, Central America apparently is already a no interest zone, but that's okay.
You know what though? El Salvador has been to effective branding surfing as part
Yeah.
of their tourism. But you know who has not in Central America, and most people wouldn't even think of surfing, is Panama.
Oh,
Panama is ripe. And
I'll tell
especially
you.
that Bocas del Toro area, you look at the visuals and you think that you're somewhere, you think that you're in like Barbados or something like that. And the water's blue. There's lots of diverse style of waves. You could totally dupe your wife into going to Panama.
I'll tell you. I've done Panama. Uh, Panama is phenomenal. Panama lives up. I didn't do specific surf Panama, but everything like Panama City is even a good time.
Yeah. So there you go.
Panama.
Get working on
Yep.
that. All right. Well, thank you, listener, for your inquiry. And thank you, VayerWatches.com/surf splendor. Save 15% on Father's Day. Pros in the wild. You got time?
Sure do.
All right. David and Chaz. I have a very specific and unique example of when approaching a pro in the wild may not have been appropriate. I'll let you two decide since I haven't been able to classify this interaction, which is nearly 15 years old. Like any surfer born in the late 70s to early 80s, I spent countless hours watching Taylor Steele's VHS tapes and was enamored with the entire Momentum Generation crew. Originally from Ventura County, I had the occasional run in with the Currens and the Malloy brothers. They were always cordial, but being a very young kid, I never was compelled to approach them and start up a conversation. Fast forward to a decade or so ago, maybe 2007 ish. I'm a grown man with a real job and real responsibilities, living near North County, San Diego, and frequenting Oceanside for my weekly ocean adventures. One particular day, I ventured my way over to Trestles for an early afternoon, midweek session at Middles, hoping to get a few waves to myself. The lineup was fairly empty, with only a handful of guys to be seen around. I paddled out and shortly after was joined by Teddy Navarro and none other than Kalani Robb. The three of us traded waves for an hour or so before I got the courage to approach Kalani. I paddled back out after a wave, and when Kalani kicked out, after absolutely demolishing the wave in front of me, putting us mere feet away from one another, I looked, I saw Kalani look over to me and I made my best attempt at humor. And I simply said, quote, "Hey man, you surf pretty good. You ever think about going pro?" Kalani stared at me like a fed up housewife finding the toilet seat up again. Sensing his anger, I attempted to lighten the mood and said, relax a little bit. I was just messing with you." Kalani forced a smile and a chuckle, and he went on his way. I ended up relaying this story to a buddy of mine who was and currently is much more up to date with all the things surfing than me. And he told me that Kalani was working an office job at a pharmaceutical company in Irvine after retiring from surfing. And the word on the block was that he was pretty miserable with his current state of affairs. With that newfound information, I felt like my well intentioned joke was likely perceived as a punch in the gut rather than a good natured ribbing. Keeping this in mind, my failed execution of a harmless, or keeping this in mind, is my failed execution of a joke, of a harmless joke to blame? Or are there times when approaching a pro in the wild would have been a better, or not approaching the pro in the wild would have been a better option? I haven't been able to sleep in 17 years thinking about this. Hopefully, you guys can help. Thanks, Brett.
I've got it. It's option C. Kalani Robb is a dick. Like, as simple as that. Like, who cares, Kalani? Like, for surfers, surfers are not famous enough. Surfers are not Taylor Swift. Surfers are not even, what, Angelina Jolie. Surfers are nothing. Surfers, to get recognized as a surfer, is like, if you don't have the grace, the amount of grace, if you're Kalani Robb, to just smile and laugh, or to say hi, or to be fake friendly when something like this happens. Who cares what's happened in your day? If you like this person doesn't know, putting your bad life on somebody else, just smile and nod. And if you want to go internal, Kalani Robb could think, I was really blessed for a period of my life where I got paid to surf, and those were good times. And now, hey man, I'm in the dregs here. You know, it's not cool. I'm in the salt mines, but I can reflect back on those good times, and I don't need to put my bad times on this dude. Like I can smile and say, ha ha, thanks, man. Whatever, laugh and paddle back out. Surfers are not famous enough. I'll say it again, to ever be rude to anyone.
Don't disagree with you. I think your sentiment is spot on. However, it was a terrible joke.
It doesn't matter though. It doesn't matter if he said like it's not that bad. It's like it's just kind of a dad joke, right? It's like even if it lands well, it's not that funny. But I get that you're awkward and you just want to say something. You don't want to sound like a fan, but you want to say, I know who you are, and whatever. I get the pickle he was in, but again, I'm putting all blame on the surfer, in this case, Kalani Robb.
Go for it. I just feel like Kalani didn't punch him in the face over it. Kalani didn't say, shut the F up or anything like. He just like was confused. And that was because the joke was so bad. That's my
Even
point.
even bad attitude though, I'm gonna say is you professional surfer are not afforded the right to have a bad attitude ever.
Yeah.
Like you have had a minute to do something spectacular, and you better be gracious and grateful for the rest of your life to everyone.
Well, I can think of no surfer who has better genetic gifts than Kalani Robb. That guy, I don't know how old he is. He has had a six pack, probably an eight pack up until today, like
Yeah.
his entire life. And I don't think of him as being like the most strict, disciplined workout dude. Like he just was gifted with that and still carries the gift after all these years.
So you got to be gracious, Kalani Robb. Didn't Kalani? He was the one who tried to be an actor, right?
I don't remember him
Was
trying to
that
be an
Kalani?
actor.
Who was the other Hawaiian dude who
Matty
was
Liu.
no? I think it's Kalani. I think
Well, he
Kalani,
in Forgetting
yeah,
Sarah Marshall.
exactly. I think Kalani really tried to go the acting route, like
Okay.
legit tried. And I
Okay.
don't think so. Maybe he's mad about that.
Yeah, maybe. And by the way, I said naturally genetically blessed, but naturally gifted as a surfer. Like his surfing
Beautiful.
ability, and I know there's a lot of people who have more talent than others naturally, but his was like, and still is. Like you just watch the way that he is on a wave, it was like he was born on the reef.
I mean, that is the thing about, I feel, maybe the older I get or the more surfing I watch, is style becomes more and more and more important. And people who have genetically good style, like who just like I watched a Mikey February clip the other day, and he just surfs so beautifully, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like poetry in motion. And I know people probably think some of his stuff is affected, but it doesn't look affected to me anymore. Like that is his, I don't know, instrument. That's the way he dances on the wave.
Right.
And yeah, like it's hard. And the people who have bad styles too, like, love me some Adriano de Souza. Nothing against the little plumber, but man, is that an ugly style, right? Like it is an unpleasing style to watch.
Well, if listeners want to hear a deep discussion on style, I'm publishing an episode with Devin Howard this week of Surf Splendor, and he does a deep dissertation on style, how, why it matters, how it's a reflection of function. It's not a form, it is a reflection of function. Like,
Because
um,
that's when style looks good, right? It's like if something looks forced, if you're doing something styly that is not has nothing to do with the function, then that's when it's all everybody's mocking.
yeah. And coming from Devin, obviously, is a very credible source, but he gives all the credit to Scott Hulet because Hulet wrote about it at some point, and Devin came across the writing, and then that's kind of spurred the ideas for Devin. But we do at least 30 minutes on it, and I think it's really, really compelling, actually. Well, let's go to commercial break and we will be back with Barrel or Not. All right, Chaz, welcome back to the show. I've got a conundrum and a quandary for you.
What you got?
Heat number 3 that's in the water right now of the opening round has our beloved and returned Joao Chianca, which makes me feel like we have to root for him. However, he is against our survival pick, Griffin Colapinto,
I mean,
and they're both against your favorite surfer, Ryan Callinan.
that's the problem. That is when I picked for the first time in my survival history, I actually went to the heat draw,
Yeah.
the opening day heat draw to pick, and I struggled with this because I love Joao and I want Joao's return to be fruitful. But I also think Joao, okay, he's not like back on tour yet, right? He's like, so it's good if he just gets a little bit. So it's okay if Griff takes him out.
Yeah.
Ryan Arcal, my favorite surfer of all time, rooting against him actively,
I know,
actively hoping that Arcal fails.
I know.
This doesn't feel good.
Rooting for Arcal to get third, so I can still hold Joao near dear to my heart, and then Griffin, of course, wins the heat, and then Arcal has to unfortunately go to the elimination round, and
Where he can blow up in the Arcal can blow up in the elimination round.
You can hope.
What is the scores right now coming in?
It just started. Arcal's the only guy with a wave, and it's a 5.
I gotta say, I was listening to it a little tiny bit this morning before hopping on with you. There's something about Chris Cote and El Salvador that really works. Like it feels like it is the bastard surf competition, this El Salvador one. It's like, it's and not to call Chris Cote the minor leagues, but it's him. He is certainly the B team or the C team. And it's him and Salazar, I don't know how that Salazar dude. Let's just leave him. Let's leave off Salazar for a minute. But Chris Cote, it feels like nobody from corporate is watching, and he just has a freer flow. And like it seems like he was saying stuff that was, maybe not people are, WSL proper is not like tuning in with the ruler, waiting to whack people for saying something wrong.
I like Jesse Mendez lately.
Jesse Mendez weirdly grew on me over the course of Chopu. Like initially, his monotone and I was like, how they could not have picked a worse person to get in the booth than Jesse Mendez. But for some reason, Jesse Mendez warmed up.
Well, they brought him in occasionally just as like, for one heat or whatever it was. And I think he really proved his worth. And now he's on kind of as a regular guy for like full events.
He was he was insightful. I hate to say it. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of listeners who very much disagree. Please chime in with Jesse Mendez hate. I'm here for it. I wish I had it myself.
Yep. Just as an update, Jack Robinson won heat number 2. So
wonder if anybody has Jack R for this event.
Yeah. Okay. Barrel or not. By the way, an email came through this week with a barrel or not submission. It was sitting to pee. I was like, bro.
It's Pinkler.
Bro, how new are you? How do you not know that was like a big topic for a year, probably?
For a year. I mean, sits pink, like we figured out like linguistics and stuff because of sits pickling.
And I was like, are they just joking? Is this like a troll?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Anyways, this barrel or not segment, most of them came from a listener. Actually, all 3 of them came from a listener. He said, I've written a time or 2 before. The last one was after almost croaking due to a bleed in the gut. He had wrote to Scott and Scott was very, very right in stating that we all need to listen to our wives. And yes, I did finally marry her after that near-death dilemma. So your wives will be the ones to tell you to go to the doctor, and you should listen. I
will say, I mean, as a tool to live by, yes, but also don't listen right away. Like
some things will go away on there.
Your wife, a lot of things will go away. Your wife has to tell you like 20 times to go to the doctor on something that is persistently a problem, and then start listening at time 20.
Yep. Okay. I like it. Wives who are also listening, throw out 19 arbitrarily so they listen on the 20th. So he continues to say, so a few barrel or nods or maybe tools to live by. So he's given us all 3 barrel or nods today. Number 1, Anally retentive towel drying. I've always been a just dry myself kind of guy. I mean, I just washed myself, right? But my wife introduced me to specific parts of the towel for different parts of the body, as in middle of your head, face and body, down to the end where the tag is for your butt crack and the other part of your Jiggly Bits. Soap ain't always perfect. So I've taken it aboard and I'm happy to run with my new towel routine. Am I smart or have I just gone soft, pun intended? So what he's saying is you don't want to accidentally use the part of the towel that you wiped your butt with, despite you, maybe as clean as it might be. You don't want to use that part of the towel to then wipe your face. So you use a designated segment of the towel to wipe your face and a different segment to wipe everywhere else, just to make sure you don't make a mistake.
Again, so this will go with my other, I feel, selections on similar topics of over cleanliness, where I will say no barrel. You need to get a little bit of your butt in your face in order for you to have the immune response, the antibodies, all this, right? We get too clean. We know that if you are always hand sanitizing, if you are, washing everything perfectly all the time, if not one germ gets in your body, someday one germ is going to get in your body and it's going to kill you. The
It's a
person,
great point.
the person who butt cleans face, that person's no problem. That person's getting out easy because that person has built up butt face immunity.
Hard to argue against it. I will, though, argue against his point that the soap ain't always perfect. You're wrong. If you use it correctly, the soap actually does clean everything. And so once you get out of the shower, it's pretty much safe going wherever you go. But my personal strategy, pay attention to which side the tag is on. You use one side of the towel today, use the opposite side of the towel tomorrow. The towel forgets everything by day 3. You start back at the beginning.
Man, my towel home is just chaos. There is towel chaos going on here. I will just find any towel I can, like on any floor in any bedroom, and that's my towel for the day.
All right, then you are going to be immune to everything.
That's what I feel.
Okay, barrel or not. Elastic drawstring boardies. You guys discuss this as a kook and current thing. Mate, they are a total barrel. Just for the ease of access when you're busting for a pee and longevity, Velcro always gets messed up year after year, or laundry, the string fabric clogs up in the Velcro loops. Just saying, maybe I just keep boardies for too long.
Barrel, it is barrel, except again with a caveat and a trouble spot of the elastic waist. Is the elastic waist swim trunk or surf trunk, as it were? I'm gonna say more than 9 times out of 10 comes with that stinky mesh built-in underwear, where that is
The internet.
the internet. The internet, as we know, is a curse. I don't know. I don't get it. I get what it's there for. It's there so your junk doesn't spill out. But have you ever sat on a sailboat in a pair of trunks with the internet?
No.
It hurts eventually so bad. Like the whatever it is, like it just hurts. It like it's digging into your skin and it
Yeah.
hurts, or it's awful. It's awful, awful, awful. So I'm all down with the elastic waist and I cut out my internets.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I am anti-elastic waist strictly from an aesthetic standpoint.
But it's
I don't
cool.
know.
You could
I don't
sag
think
it.
it I don't think it looks good. It looks awful, actually.
I'm gonna send you some like sexy Italian men's in like with their trunks pulled really low.
Okay. You mean
Yeah.
images of or the trunks
Images.
themselves?
Yeah,
Okay.
images of. Yeah.
Cool. Send me photos of sexy Italian men in their bathing suits. So you're going barrel on that. I'm going no barrel. Final barrel and off. Surf mat. 5.5 months post soldier shoulder surgery here. Been back swimming in the pool and doing the strength exercises a lot. Does it make me soft that I'm looking at a surf mat as I return to the watercraft? I listened to your talk with with the Dead Kooks shaper, and he rated them highly as a return to surf vehicle.
No, no barrel, no barrel. The mat, the rinse kit, all of it is no barrel.
No,
Any kind.
the mat is he's not talking about the one that you stand on. He's talking about the one that you ride like a
Oh,
boogie board, the
okay.
inflatable surf
Got it,
mat.
got it, got it, got it.
He's coming off shoulder surgery, so getting back into the water, can't paddle or
Oh,
surf, but you can use fins with a surf mat and kick yourself into a wave and ride on the mat as opposed to a boogie board.
massive barrel. The
Yeah.
the people on surf mats look like they're having the most fun of anyone on Earth and maybe the history of the Earth. Like
Yeah.
the surf mat dude, every once in a while I'll see a surf mat dude around these parts. That guy, and again, I know don't like the axiom, best surfer is the one having the most fun. We all know the best surfer is actually the best surfer. But surf mat dude is not the best surfer, but is having a lot of fun. And that's the kind of fun I would like to have from time to time, especially if I could, uh, if that fun could be for another reason, right? Like, oh, I have to do this because I just
Yeah.
had shoulder surgery. Like,
Yeah.
because if I go out on a surf mat, no matter how much fun I'm having, I would think, why am I not surfing? Right? If that was not an option, if I was like, oh, because I'm rehabbing my shoulder, then you have all the plausible deniability to have the most fun.
Totally. I do not own one. I need to get one. Everybody who's into it is like completely passionate about it. And it's like, dude, you are blowing it by not having one. Plus, you deflate it. So if you're going on a trip, it fits wherever you need to bring it. And you have fun in no matter what the style of waves are. It could be whitewash, or you could be at a pumping point break. You're going faster than everybody else. It's fun no matter what.
The problem, again, and here is, I suppose, you open Pandora's box by doing the surf mat because then it could, like, could you envision yourself becoming surf mat guy? Like accidentally, like not stand up surfing anymore. Just like,
The
you
point
know
is,
what? Who am I trying to? I mean, I could see the mental calculation already. Who am I trying to, impress anymore? I don't care. This is funner than surfing. I'm just gonna go out and have fun. Who cares? I'm not becoming a pro. All of a sudden, you're making the choice between surf mat or stand up, and then it's like 60-40, then it's 80-20, and then you're surf mat guy. And then
yeah,
you're like aggressive about it too. You're like, yeah, what are you gonna say about it? I made a decision to be surf mat dude. I'm into surf mats, man. Who
but
cares?
this goes back to our earlier debates and conversations about going back to the basics, like Jack White just mastering the guitar and then finally just putting a string on a piece of wood and playing it with a nail and then creating music that way, or Tom Curran riding the skimboard. This is just getting back to the absolute basics, reconnecting with the most essential element and realizing that's where the fun is. Everything that came after that and me getting to my feet and me finding out the exact right style of board and which board and only surfing these style of waves on that style of board, and that all of that is artifice and makes it less fun.
Except though, I will harken back. We began with Britt. We shall end with Britt. Britt Merrick, locking into high performance shortboards as peak. There's something to be said for that as well, right? That yes, body surfing, the simplest form of it, the most essential, everything, that's all you really need, blah, 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 blah. But I'm going to say evolution. I'm going to say that the high performance thruster specifically is the peak way you can enjoy a wave, the best way you can enjoy a wave.
So are you going barrel surf mat or no surf mat?
I'm just saying it's a slippery, slippery slope. I was going to say for sure barrel, but now that I think about it more, I'm going to say don't open that box
Okay.
unless you want to be surf mat bro. If you want to give up surfing and be surf mat guy, because I think it looks too fun. It looks like more fun than you could possibly be able to deny yourself. It's like it'd be like snorting a bunch of coke, and then you go down the next day, and there's the coke. You're gonna snort some more of that coke. It was so much fun. Next day, you're gonna do it too. Now you're a coke head, right? That's what Matt writing is going to do.
If the cocaine revitalized your soul, spirit, and nurtured your body with nutrients, that is what the mat is the equivalent of, because it's all positive, no detriment.
Yeah.
And imagine how
It
much
is
easier it
detriment.
is
You're
to
out
get
there,
barreled.
but you're out there on a surf mat.
Yeah.
It has all kinds of, you're got the wave of your life, feeling good. You look over and see somebody even struggling down the line on their high performance thruster, and you think, that guy's cooler than me.
Nope, you don't think that. You don't even have an opinion about them because you just had the best time of your life. All right. Well, we remain divided, and that is okay. But man, this heat is topsy turvy
Oh, it's
from our
scaring me.
predictions. It is Ryan Callinan in first, Griffin Colapinto in second, and Joao Chianca in third currently.
It's
11
funny.
minutes left.
I thought about picking our Ryan Callanan has been looking phenomenal, not just Tahiti. He looked phenomenal in like been having a great year, Ryan Callanan. It
Mm,
feels like Ryan Callanan was one of those surfers where you just never knew if he was going to lay a full egg. Like you knew he had
yeah.
all the talent in the world, but in terms of heat strategy and all that, but it seems like he's put it all together this year, his 84th year on tour.
I only remember his Tahiti performance. I can't even imagine what he did the rest of the season yet.
He's,
But he's still
he,
on tour. He made the cut, so that's good.
and I think he's pretty high up in the rankings.
Okay. All
Yeah, I think he's had a good
right.
year.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, I love the post mid-year cut format because they ran all the women. It took 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's like quick. And John's hitting the water next. Every single heat is uh showstopper or like top level surfers.
It makes so much sense. I mean,
Yeah, it
it's
does.
just, yeah, but I do like the carnage of the cut, I'll admit.
Yeah. All right. Well, great show. Thanks for doing this a day early. And anything else to discuss?
I was going to say, you mentioned Scott Hewlett. Scott Hewlett has a book where I need to bring better information here, but Scott Hewlett's book,
Violento.
Violento, is a work of art. It is like a proper, honest to goodness work of art, uh, and needs to be purchased by everyone.
Yeah, you can get it through the Surfer's Journal for 35 bucks. Go to their website. I have it here in my hand for those who are not watching us on YouTube. I spent half a day with Scott the other day and recorded a podcast with him as well. And walking out of that experience, it was transformative, I shall say. And the reason why is he lives his life very artfully. He has made decisions that were idealistic, like I'm going to live a life of poverty by editing a magazine, basically. And I'm going to have a bunch of offers to do a bunch of other stuff, but I'm going to do this because I am invested in this passion project. And also, the other thing is traveling the world endlessly. Like that is his passion, and he's never sacrificed that to do anything else, any other kind of, we get anchored into responsibilities, I guess. And so we sacrifice the original passions. He has a home base, but he spends the majority of his time on the road. And he isn't a professional surfer. He's figured out a way to surf and travel on the road, and he's committed to his ideals, basically.
Scott Hewlett is writing life as if it were a surf mat.
He really is. So I walked away and I was like, it wasn't, I mean, he wasn't preaching any of this stuff to me, but it just like I absorbed it. And I was like, man, I want to live like Scott. Why am I not living like Scott? My wife would like to live like Scott. My kid would benefit from living like Scott. Why aren't we living like Scott?
Live like Scott. When does this episode drop?
Next week, I
Yeah,
believe.
looking forward to that one. But yeah,
Yeah.
listeners, go get Flow Violento. It is beautiful addition to any surf library.
Completely agree. In his writing, when I say he lives artfully, his commitment to the craft of writing is so evident, and you are enriched by it. You know what I mean? Like you read it and you're just like, he's not trying too hard. He's not trying to be something. It's just, it flows through him.
Yep.
And so, yeah, big fan. And yeah, I guess that's it. Chaz Smith, thank you very much. Go to beachgrit.com or at Surf Journalist. And then, of course, everything that we discussed is on surfsplendorpodcast.com. So until next week.
Keep work.